So a very warm welcome to everyone watching this. We hope you are looking after yourself and each other. So today, the 2nd of February, is Time to Talk Day, the nation's biggest mental health conversation. It's a day that friends, families, communities and workplaces come together to talk, listen and change lives. So the theme this year is all about making space in your day to have a conversation about mental health. So many people are fearful sharing information about their mental health. However, scientific research has found that talking to someone about your problems can reduce stress, it can boost your immune system and reduce physical and emotional distress. So as Bob Hopkins said in the BT ad there, it's good to talk. Now, to discuss this further and to share their journey, I'd like to give a warm welcome to veteran Andrew Hill. So thank you for joining us today, Andrew, and for your time. And I'd also like to welcome Bernie Graham, who leads our mental health and suicide awareness programme at BuildForce. Now, Andrew, you and I did indeed talk. We recently inducted you onto the BuildForce programme and you very articulately shared your transition. And your career history has been both shaped and strengthened by your own mental health. So can you share a bit more about that with those watching?
No problem. So, hello everyone. Myself joined the army back in 1993, at which point I sort of finished basic training, or was coming to the end of basic training, and ended up getting I was a bit of a whippet. So I was asked to go out and do a run. Did a run, injured my knee, and was discharged from the army with the right to reapply. C3 discharge was actually the first bit. Returned after a whole lot of medical boards in 1996 back to ATR Basingbourne to do basic training again. That's fun doing it twice, I've got to say. And then down to School and Signals in Blandford, where I did all my basic training, trade training. Went to one mech. When I got to one mech, I was I wanted to become a PTI because nobody likes running. It's much better to stand there and take it. So I did my PTI's course. But after one mech, briefly, 2.5 years, I was promoted to Lance Corporal, which was great. Moved on to 30 SIGs in Nuneaton. Wonderful place with Joint Rapid Reaction Force. I was there when I went there, but back to Blandford on my class 1, promoted off that one to corporal, posted out to Germany. I had completed a tour to Bosnia with one mech when I was there, my first unit. Out to Germany. When I was in Germany, volunteered for Iraq, went out to Iraq, went back to one mech actually, and went out to Iraq with one mech into 2004. We were at Basra Palace first, and then we moved up to BIA. Had an injury whilst I was in the Jelly Bay, and I was casevaced out of there on a trolley. I had a severe pulled disc in my back, which was actually pulling my spinal cord out. So I lost the use of my legs. So I was flown back, casevaced out, flown back, sent straight into Germany, had an MRI scan, straight in with a surgeon. She kind of he told me, the first surgeon actually switched it on and said, I don't really want to touch that. So I handed it over to the new neurosurgeon, or the senior neurosurgeon. He said, well, you've got two choices. You can either have the operation or you'd be paralyzed from the waist down. So at least if you have the operation, it can potentially paralyze you, which fortunately, as I'm still stood here now, or sat down in a minute, I just have a numb left foot as a reaction from it. And that was back in 2004. From there, rehabbed. I was selected for promotion while I was on tour in 2004. So promoted to sergeant. So I kind of hit my promotion barriers all the way through, doing really well. Went to Northern Ireland. I spent 2.5 years in Northern Ireland at HQNI on the training team. And my wife, or my now wife, became pregnant with my first son, Lucas. And from there, my CO really wanted me to push me to be the next corps representative. kind of Sandhurst thing. Not for me. I wanted to be at home and kind of welcome my child and spend a bit of time with my child. We all know the pressures of being away from your family. You know, I kind of come from a broken family, so I wanted to spend some time. So I took a career at or 2-year posting to the Army Careers Information Office in Doncaster, which I absolutely loved because I became the school careers advisor for South Yorkshire, which is great. And I am very much an advocate of it's great up north. I love it. I'm not saying it's bad down south, but it's better up north. It's cheaper beer as well. So up to Doncaster. Lisa had Lucas. He was born in Doncaster. It was great, you know. Sort of had a nice brand new build. For me was good, and I was then selected for promotion to staff sergeant posted out of there. And I was posted back to 36 as a staff sergeant. So I was going there as an 11-year staff sergeant. We'd obviously had Lucas, and we were just coming up. Lisa was pregnant again, and we had Zachary. So just arrived at 36, you know, newly promoted staff sergeant, careers booming. I was 11 years sitting as a staff sergeant, and Lisa had Zachary, and we'd brought him home, and he wasn't very well, and she was sort of having the, you know, she's saying he's not very well, so we went down to the doctors. You know, doctor sat there, took his temperature. He's got a little bit of a high temperature. Came back. You know, she was still convinced there's nothing wrong with him. You know, I'm tired. I'm on paternity leave. I'm thinking, new job. I want to get back. You know, as it is, you're buzzing for it, but family's important. Paternity leave. She's like, there's something still wrong. So we went back down to the doctor, saw another doctor. Nothing happened. We had the health worker come out. Another day, overnight, no sleep. He's not feeding. I mean, we were told all sorts of things. Put syringe water into his mouth, keep him hydrated. Nothing happened. Lack of sleep, as you do, sleep deprivation. Everyone's a bit grouchy, isn't it? Newborn. I've got a 2-year-old to entertain as well. Sat in the house. Me and Lisa had a blazing row, and we went to. I was like that. That's it. I need to get some fresh air. I'm going to take the boy up to the park. I took him up to the park, just had an hour up the road, you know what I mean? Let him burn out a bit of juice rather than running around the house causing mayhem. And I walked back in, and I remember it's clear. Then Lisa was on her knees and she was just crying, and she said, something's not right and nobody's listening to me. And that was it. I lost my shit. I'm not going to lie. I was like, we've had 5 doctors, healthcare worker, you know, on the phone, on call. We've seen them. Everybody's told you, but you're not listening to it. I was like, I've had enough. That's it. Get in the car. In the car, off you go. Went into Leicester Royal Infirmary. They were great. Awesome service in A&E. They rushed us through A&E. Went upstairs. Took us in about 3 hours. We were in paediatrics. Paediatric nurse walked in. Got me in his baby chair. Sort of picked him out of the chair. Literally, the paediatric nurse just picked him up out of his chair. She was like, oh no, you know, put him on the bed. She went, just hold on to him, we're back in a second. She walked straight out, and she got a nurse. Sorry, she went and got the paediatrician. Paediatrician walked in literally and picked him up, and she was like that, gone. And that was it. Whole world sort of exploded. You know, 30 minutes later, he's got drips coming out of his hands. He's got drips in his legs. You know, he's got everything all over him, and he's sort of he's sitting there. I mean, this is 14 years ago now, and he's there, and it's like the whole world's turned upside down. I mean, I won't be the first, and I won't be the last. You know, any parent will tell you that if anything's wrong with your kids, you know, it makes your heart sink. You know, I've seen my friends injured, colleagues. You know, we have a bit of banter about it. You broke your leg, nice when you get 6 weeks off, you lizard. You know, we can see that, but when it's your kids, it's a different thing, isn't it? So that was us. We were in A&E. Sorry, A&E. We were up on the paediatric ward in critical care, going backwards and forwards. You know, they're in there. Senior paediatrician, and obviously a staff sergeant. You know, I'd lost a few friends on tour, which we're kind of attuned to do. You know, we're talk. We can talk. The military were great because we can talk amongst ourselves because we know, it's on. We never sort of say how really bad, because put it in the back of your head, put it in the computer log and stick it in the back of your head, don't you? And, if we need to talk about it, we talk about it with a few beers and chew the fat, shed a tear, and, wet the grass for all fallen colleagues and all that. And we were there, yeah. So I'm in hospital, darting backwards and forwards. I've got 2-year-old son at home who's staying with my in-laws. I've got my wife in hospital, so I'm backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and up and down. I told the consultant, I said, look, no matter what, I don't want any bullshit. I said, just, if I need a sit down chat, I said, don't fluff anything up. I don't want it nice and fluffy. Just give me a straight, direct chat. If I need a sit down chat, tell me I need a sit down chat. And he was like, yeah, okay. So we're sort of 10 days in, still in critical care, spinal taps and all sorts, growing cultures, find out exactly what it is, because he's been done for meningitis and the whole bag. And he goes down for a brain scan, comes up. We actually got him in the room. I've got photos of it all. Loads of little stickers all over his head, and we're doing the brain scan. And he said, well, there's a little grey spot which might have given him some motor neuro or speech issues. So I'm like, yeah, okay, we can cope with that. The army head. Improvise, adapt, overcome, no dramas. I've got a 2-year-old now at the pain. It might just a little bit longer. We'll be fine. And then we carried on. Another couple of days later, he's like that. So we're going for another brain scan again because we're not too sure. We think meningitis. But he didn't really say a lot. He just said we're going to go for another brain scan. Just we're not too keen on how he's coming along. So I was like, yeah, do you mind if I come down with you? So we put him on a bed, went down in there. I've got the registrar for pediatrics there, and then I've got senior neurosurgeon and the registrar for the neurosurgeon. They're doing their bits. They're doing a scan. They're doing a proper scan this time. They're having a conversation. We're all taught, when you go on tour, you have that body language lesson, don't you? Defensive, and you can see people. So I'm talking to the registrar, but I'm looking at these guys. And I can tell by the body language something isn't right. And so I'm talking to him, and I know something's not right there. We go back up in the lift, and then, you come out the lift, and I walk in, and my wife sat there, and it's like, ooh. And she went, all right. And I'm like, all good. Mask is on. All good. I'm all good. We'll just wait. And then paediatrician came in, and he said, take a seat. So I suppose one of the bits that gets my wife is, she said, the noise that came out of me, because I didn't show anything. It was just sort of dead blank face. And that was it. And he turned around and he said, you've got 2 choices. Well, 3 choices, actually. He said, you can either stay here. He says, you can take him home, or you can go to a hospice. But either way, your son's going to die. So I was like, okay, no worries. We'll deal with it. I looked at Lisa. Lisa said, home. I want to go home. I've been in hospital for 17, 18 days. So we took him home. We put him in a car, not even in the baby seat. Actually, Lisa sat in the back seat of the car, and I sort of drove like the wind. And halfway home on Goggy Roundabout, if anybody's from East Goscote or around Leicestershire, on a Goggy Roundabout, he started choking because he got no gag reflex. So I'm literally thinking my son's going to die in the back seat of my car on the A607. I was like, you've got to be joking me. I thought, so we sorted him out. It was fine. We managed to get home. We had everybody come round. That's all right. I'm starting the wobbling's going a bit now. We get home, and if you're going to have a last 2 days, I don't think I could have had a better last 2 days. We had a big tree in the garden. So notice I've got a lot of tattoos. Everybody each their own. This arm is all autumn leaves, and it's got all my sons are on clocks the day they were born. and the date and the autumn leaves is for Zachary, because my eldest was doing snow angel or leaf angels in the garden when Lisa sort of said, we had my parents there, Lisa's parents there, sister and that, and she said, Andy, and she walked in the house, and then he died in her arms on the sofa. And that was it, really. That was one, that was probably the bit that changed my life forever. When you put it there, you know, I was army barmy, career mad. You know, I've got a career, I'm a lifer, this is going to be done. And I was always mad keen on my family, but that, you know, that career commitment, that's where I want to be, that determination. It took a knock. You know, I mean, it's like, what is your priority? You know, and for me, that was a real sort of eye-opener, family priority all the way through it. So yeah, that was me. I sort of had a 2 weeks off, you know, good old compassionate leave. It was a bit different back then. So I sort of had 2 weeks off, and I had an amazing boss in a bloke called Chris Hymus. They were sort of like, you know, phase yourself back to work. And me, I'll tell you now, 100%, I wanted to get back to work. Not because I wanted to be at work, because it was an avoidance tool. It was the emu moment, you know. If I go back to work and I could stick my head in the sand, you know, my arse in the air, that's it, happy days, I can get on with it. Even to the point that I then volunteered to go to Afghan. So, like, you know, go to Afghan, get to Afghan. So I went to Afghan, hated it just because I knew I was running away, but loved it because I was doing what I love to do, and I didn't have to deal with my issues. But I kind of left my wife to deal with it. So then I was posted. I went down to Chick's Hands, and we needed to move. And it was a time when the housing market had gone. So Lisa's like, I want to be near my family. Only the other side of town, but it's amazing what 3 miles can be a hassle when you've got kids, you know. So sold the house, lost about 35 grand on the house, which was a big old kick in the in the schwally, so to speak. So it was what Lisa and Lucas needed. I mean, Lisa had become pregnant, you know, during this time. Lisa had become pregnant again. She had a miscarriage after 4 months. I mean, that was just a monster kick to her. So when she had Louis, when she was pregnant with Louis, my youngest, you know, that was 9 months of pure hell for the pregnancy. Newborn baby, he wasn't really recognised as a person until it was probably about 2, 3, when he could actually turn around and say, I'm not very well, which then, even then, Lisa would be like a schmoolie. Boom, off she'd go, you know what I mean? We were down the doctors. So during this time, I actually had a court case because investigating myself, I actually wrote a letter after Zachary died to the doctor's surgery saying, I want to know why my son had died. And they took 2 weeks to investigate my son's death, and they came back with a letter that had 14 lines on it. A4-page letter had 14 lines. We've investigated this, we've done nothing. Typical squaddy response, bosh. Andy gets on it. All right, smashes out a load of booze. I thought, that's it, I've had enough. I was so angry. I was at work, the lads, when I read it, I was fuming all day. Got home, had an argument with Lisa. I was like, go to your mum's, you know what I mean, I'll deal with this. So I got pissed. Answer at the bottom of a bottle, doesn't really work. So then I emailed my local MP that night. My name's Andy Hill, Staff Sergeant. I've been to every shithole you sent me to, and blah, blah, blah. All I asked is you look after my wife and my children. I expect this care and blah, blah, blah. Like 11:30, like, bosh, send, pass out. Thanks very much. Gets a phone call in the morning. I'm kind of asleep on the sofa. Still got the laptop at the side of me. Phone rings. It's about 8:15. And I was like that. Hello. It was like, hi, is that Andrew Hill? I was like, yeah, speaking. Is that Staff Sergeant Andrew Hill? I was like, yeah, speaking. Who's this? He says, hi, it's Alan Duncan, your MP. Oh, hello. Flashback. Boom. You know, we've all been there, had a few beers. What did I say and do last night? So I kind of flashbacked, and he went, look, I've read your email. He said, give me 48 hours, and I'll get back to you with an answer. Within 36 hours, I had the head of Leicestershire Primary Care Trust phone up and instigate an external investigation that was conducted by a firm in London. They spent 6.5 months into my son's death. So when you take, the reason why I kind of say this is because I didn't want my son to die in vain. So it's always about the argument. And I wanted people, you know, we're always taught in the military to take, you know, be accountable for your actions. You know, whether it's positive or negative, have a look. That mission reflection, you know, we've always done that. And I just wanted them to be responsible for their actions. But they refused to say it. So Nina Murphy and Associates, they did 7 months really in depth, and they made 35 recommendations to Leicestershire Primary Care Trust with regards to healthcare. 2 doctors left the country, 1 retired, one, they were all under serious cause for concerns for their treatment of patients and their treatment and care of neonates and babies. So, you know, positive out of the negative. He died, but we made it better for everybody else, which then you have to take that positive out of the negative, because otherwise it would have just tore me apart. I then wanted this was the only way I could get any peace for me and for Lisa, was I wanted them to apologise. The only way they were going to apologise was through legal action. So, cut a long story short, 5.5-year legal action, which literally ended with me and my family flying back from. All I wanted was an apology. You know, it was never about a monetary thing at all, and you don't get anything. I think it's about £12,000 compensation for medical negligence for an actual death of a person. So it's not about money. I just wanted an apology. You know, I appreciate people do mess up in life, and it can be a mistake that costs somebody their lives. We've all been in the business where we deal with that. Doctors, nurses, they're in the business every day. We do it short amounts of time, short periods of time. But they refused to do it. So it took us 5.5 years. And the day before we went into court, I flew the whole family back from Cyprus to go to court. My solicitor phoned us up. I mean, we're talking nearly £150,000 worth of, you know, legal fees on this. They said they wanted to settle out of court. And I said, not a chance. I will see you in court. I want you to sit in court and squirm, yeah, and sit there. And Lisa, when they say settle out of court, you know, there was like, oh, we'll admit guilt. I'm like, fucking no, you'll admit it in court. Sorry, pardon French. And Lisa just turned to me in the car. I was actually driving. We're back from Cyprus. I was driving to IKEA in Nottingham. So we did stop the IKEA trip. So I do have to say it was a good phone call in some ways. But Lisa just turned to me in the car and she said, don't make me relive it in court in front of everyone. So I said, okay, for you, I'll do anything. I was at Chick's Hands at the time, and I was promoted, and I got opportunity to be Sergeant Major in Cyprus. So all through this, I'd still done enough in my career to earn promotion to warrant officer, which I was really chuffed about, considering everything that got on and my distractions kind of on my personal life, working alongside my professional life. So yeah, chance to Cyprus. I moved the family to Cyprus around. But when I came back from Cyprus, I was at the airhead. So I'd done my 9 months at the airhead, waiting to fly back. I get a phone call. You know, how quick can you get back? My dad had been ill. He'd had a stomach operation. But he'd been ill. It was relatively routine surgery. I spoke to him earlier in the day. So how long till you get back? And I was like, not long. Why? So they just said, you know, Dad's got less than 8 hours to live. And I was like, oh, shit, the bear. I was like, AAA, phone AAA. I was like, the quickest, listen, I'm at Akrotiri Airhead. The quickest way is me getting on this flight and getting back. But they were really good, you know. They said, oh, you can't drive the other end. I'm like, you need to have more than the RAF police, sorry, to stop me getting out the gate and go and see me dad. yeah, they let me drive when I got back. I went up, got to the Royal Infirmary. Unbelievable. Royal Infirmary, same car park, same walk, same lift, goes up to the same floor. Left is critical care for the children, right is critical care for the adults. I'm like, you cannot be serious again. And I'm like, so I'm up there, I walked in. It was like, yeah, we need to turn him off. Turn him off. 8 hours later, he sat talking to me. He's like, what's with the long faces? I was like, no, well, we had to turn you off because they said you were dead. Technically, it was only a drug. It was keeping you alive. I said, but you won't have to worry about it the next time, because if you do it again, I'll wring your neck. All right, job done. I will literally, I was the person that he had testicular cancer when he was 55. And I went with him to find out whether it was all clear or whether it was terminal. But I did take a pack of 2Ps taped together. I said, stick that in your left pocket. That would keep you walking straight. You know what I mean? Because he'd had to have a nut off sort of thing. So me and my dad, we did have a bit of banter for it. But he was alive. So happy days. Septicemia. To stay alive from septicemia is sort of quite hard work. So I was now back in Stafford. Dad's in hospital, but in critical septicemia. I was ops. We run our ops cycle. So I sort of had a conversation with my boss 2 weeks in of going around visiting, going from Melton to Stafford to Leicester. And my gaffer, bless her, she was brilliant. She was like, look, we'll have a conversation. Let's swap roles. You can't be concentrating on lads at op cycle. Are you happy with that? Yeah, family first always, and I couldn't do my bit to look after my men properly because I was distracted. So let's get somebody else in. So we kind of had a bit of a swap around. And that was me. I was look after my dad, look after my mum. Got to a point, second time he literally come out of hospital, when he walked in the house, threw up blood, came out of every orifice, back into hospital. And that was a story for 18 months. And you do the round robin. Dad's wife's disabled, go and pick her up, take her back, have a shower, take her back in, because they were spending all their pension and their savings on taxi fares. So it's like the kind of burden, me and my sister. And families, they're great. So that was it. 18 months. I'd put in for a comp posting back to Nuneaton because I passed the hospital every day. Had a bit of a disagreement with my adjutant, who's kind of got into the CO's ear and thingy, and they turned around and went, he's at the next closest place, keep him here. That really cut deep with me. I did get my posting in the end, but that was 3 months after he died. So I kind of missed that one. But I was broken. I was absolutely broken.
Can I ask you, Andrew, when was that? How long ago did that point, just at that point, where it sounds like you actually had a moment to realise?
Yeah, I was coming into work one morning. I was driving into work one morning.
How long ago was that, Andrew?
That was 2015.
Okay, so we're talking about 7 years.
Yeah.
It sounded like you'd had a good few years of absolute hell.
It's about 10 years, yeah.
10 years.
Yeah.
Absolute hell. And at that point, it started to hit that you were done at that point.
Yeah, it was a proper realisation. We've been around, and I dare say there's not too many people that don't know somebody, which is we don't know somebody that's not kind of committed suicide.
Sure.
I've come across a lot of friends, colleagues, friends that have, not won the battle with their demons. And you see the effect and the impact that has on their family, their lives, their friends. Why didn't I ask the question? Why didn't I do anything? So for me, I was like, oh God, we've already lost a son, and I was physically and mentally broken. And I went, I need help. If I don't get help, and I literally walked into the MI when I went, if you don't help me today, I ain't going to be here tomorrow. I'm done. And I literally just broke down. And that was probably the first time that I'd properly broken down properly broke. I've had tears in front of my mates, you know, just having a moment. But I properly just went. I couldn't even stand. You know, I couldn't do anything. I would just everything, mate. Just the release in my body going, I need help, was huge. Which they, you know, cut long story short, they sent me off for 2 weeks, sort of off there, but put me into psychiatric help, you know, DCMH. God, a psychiatrist I saw in DCMH was phenomenal. The mental health nurse that I had in DCMH were just outstanding for me. You know, I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to go and speak to a psychiatrist about? And I used to go into them sessions and go, look, I'm never going to do it. First session, I'm not being, you know, I shut all shit myself. In layman's terms, I was generally like, oh my God, what's going on? And I went in there and it was just so calm and relaxed. You know, I'm like, so what do we talk about? He says, what do you want to talk about? I don't know. What do you want to talk about? I said, well, it's a bit like we did it at the start of the beginning. And then he was like, no, let's start at the beginning. Tell me about your life. Well, that was it. For an hour, I was in and out of rabbit holes. I'm a rabbit holer anyway. Straight in a rabbit hole. I'll talk about this. I've been laughing, crying, the tears flowing, and it was up and down. And that was the same every session. Doesn't matter whether I'd flick onto Zachary, you know, I'd flutter all over the place, talk about experiences on tours, talk about experiences personal, everything crossed. And there was no structure to a conversation, but God, it was amazing. You know, and then I moved on to a mental health nurse. I kind of reduced my psychiatrist, went on to mental health nurse, and we were exactly the same. But that buzz, that release, where you talk about anything, just go in there, start with anticipation and go like, what am I going to do? And then just unload everything. And that was huge for me. I mean, really huge.
How long did that go on for you, Andy?
That was a good 18 months in total, sort of going over it. It wasn't a slow process, you know. No. I still use the words that psychiatrists said to me, you know, it's a journey. Life is a journey. We're on a journey. And with every journey, you have good bits, you have bad bits. It's having a coping mechanism and understanding about yourself, your own body reaction to situations, you know. So I was kitted out with good tools. The flip side of it was that I got posted back to 36. So I got 3 months after my dad had died, sort of thing. Day one, sort of moved in. I got my boxes, Sergeant Major's office, happy days. Talked to the boss. He's like, you're on exercise on Wednesday. I'd been diagnosed with PTSD, but the majority of my PTSD and depression was due to my son's death, and add all the other bits on and everything else. Bits about tours, all right, but primarily it was the core of it was my son's death. 45 minutes later, I'm stood there with an FMED 26 going like that. Oh, okay. So I walk back into work and the boss is like that. You ready to go on exercise? Say, can't go on exercise, boss, because I've just been med discharged. And my kit in tomorrow morning, D-kit, job done, go home. You've got 6 months to sort yourself out, which I'm sure if anybody's been med discharged, you kind of get that. Here's your discharge date. So March med board, 6 months discharge. You've got pick what you want to do for the rest of your life. No, don't forget this 2-year malarkey. All right, 6 months. So I sort of just rushed my courses, doing what I needed to do. And then, yeah, that was it. Out in Civvy Street, working as a sparky. I'm like, hang on a minute, I've just been discharged because my body's broken. I'm sparkying. It was bad. So all of a sudden I then went to, I thought, I can't do this. My body is telling me, no, you can't sparky, Andy. And then I went to be a mobile plant instructor. Great company turned around and said, look, I know you've been an instructor in the past. You're a military lad. You've got all these instructional qualifications. I want you to teach mobile plant. So have you done any? Well, I did my forklift truck about, oh God, I was a SIG at the time. So it was about 20 years ago. And I've done my telehandler, which I always used to get on because it was easier than humping and dumping. So yeah, that's the kind of bits I've done. He went, yeah, that'll do. And then he taught me to do it. I was self-employed working for him, but didn't really know what I was doing with self-employed because I was unprepared for it. So it's like, oh my God, it's going out. Got on top of it. And then I had an opportunity to, I interviewed. I've actually done 8 interviews since I've left, one of which I didn't get the job. 7 of the others I've all had job offers for, you know, from the interview. 2 I've turned down through personal choice, because I always think an interview's two-way. Is it me? Is it you? You know, do I fit you and do you fit me? And you know, I got an interview with Tarmac, and I took a role, and I went to be an ops manager for Mount Sorrel Quarry.
Thank you so much for sharing. That must be, I'm going to swear, but I won't. That must be incredibly, incredibly hard for you to talk about. Can I ask you, because you went, I think, through, by any estimation, any assessment, you went through hell. We're talking about a 10-year period.
Yeah.
And look, I always say in my training, Angela's heard me say it many minutes, there are no magic wands or silver bullets.
No.
What helped you? What has helped you? I'm not going to say move on from it, because it's still there with you and you're very honest, but what has helped you, if you like, cope and go into the future?
I've got to say, actually, the help from my mental health professionals massively helped me, because they gave me tools to go on. But actually, what's really helped me, and I've sort of really embraced it, is talking about it. It's talking about my experience. And as much as it, you know, people will see me on air and, you know, God, it sounds like an EastEnders episode, doesn't it? You know, it's a good storyline for somebody in EastEnders, that. But having them conversations, and I'm now a trainer, and I got a phone call from my boss now, Matt, who said, you know, I know what you're passionate about training. I've seen you how you ring me up and you complain about the training that you've received for the company, because it's not at the standard that you would expect, you know, because yes, you want it to be the best, so your staff are trained the best. I said, yeah, you know, done that my entire career. So it's like, he said, do you want to come up and train? So now I actually train, and like today I've been doing occupational health, and
Andrew, could I come in and say, so 2 things I'm hearing from this is the talking about it.
Oh,
so important.
Yeah.
Also, through maybe part of that talking process is identifying, if you like, the future, that, you know, a way forward for you in terms of work. That was very important, because for BuildForce, what we're trying to do is help people with that transition from, if you like, maybe their time in the armed forces to move into the construction industry and the built environment.
Yeah.
And part of that's why we have the mental health element, we have the very practical stuff, the seminars, the, you know, the insight days, all the things. So we're trying to bring those 2 together. And what, for me, you're almost personifying what we do. So I would like you to share with other people, we've talked about how important it is to talk.
Yeah.
Because it sounded like almost like a purging. And I say to people, the first time you go into therapy, and that includes my own therapy, because we've all got our shit, is that it's like a puking, it's like a vomiting. You got to clear the system.
God, yeah.
You got to clear, you know, system in a way before you can actually start moving forward on it. So for you, talking, getting a good career direction, would you identify anything else that has helped you under the most difficult of circumstances?
Well, the talking's been a huge thing for me, and being able to use it in my job as a positive. You know, out of every negative, there is always a positive. So I can use my message about my own mental health journeys, and I call it a journey because it's constantly on a journey, isn't it? And I use that because fundamentally we're poor as men. Sorry, ladies, I want to steal your thunder, but women can talk about most things, and they're actually quite open with their friends, you know. But I dare say you've been down the pub, Bernie, you know, how you doing? All right? Yeah, it's all right, no worries. You know, the most important thing is who's getting the next round in and who's shirking around, you know, and we'll skirt around it. But
they say women get together to address problems, men get together to forget about them. So
yeah.
I mean, there's a gross generalization there, but I appreciate what you're saying.
Having that focus as well. Nowadays, because we're becoming more open and we're talking about, and particularly now businesses, you know, part of the thing I train, actually, Mace, they've got a gentleman on Mates in Mind that has a conversation about his own personal issues with his daughter, you know, and it's a fantastic bit. It's a fantastic little video that Mace use, or that we use in Mates in Mind from him about the conversation. Because, like I say, if you were to stand and have a conversation with me, I've right here, right now, I could put a mask on, but, you know, take the mask off and behind the mask is the real person. We can take that mask off and put a positive spin throughout construction, because you've got to think that construction is the highest suicide rate.
Yep.
Right. So the more we're open, the more we talk about it, the more we can talk about work-related stress, the more, you know, our workload. Be open, be honest, have honest conversations with people, honest feedback. If we can do that in a more open environment, then we become more inclusive. And that's, you know, what we as military people, well, we're used to chewing the fat over a wet, whatever it is you want to do, you know, but we're kind of used to it because we're in that environment. Now, actually, we can use our skills about having them conversations. As long as we can get over it, it's about mental health, but we can talk about any issue in any environment. Yeah, and we can relay that into our working life, particularly within construction. You know, our experiences, what it made us feel, how it made us feel. If we can show that we've got a chest full of medals and we can talk about our emotions, then surely somebody on the building site can.
And I think that is the thing, by leading by example, which I think is genuine leadership, is actually say, look,
yeah,
I do this, learn,
yeah.
you know, instead of telling people what to do, hopefully they pick up through the example, through what you show. What would you say? And this is a really difficult question, but look, I've just got the greatest respect for the journey you're on and what you have put in place to help you under the most difficult of circumstances. And people do go through absolute hell in their life.
Well, not the only one, yeah.
Yeah, but it's all relative to the individuals. You had, you know, I say sometimes life can be incredibly unfair to people. They get an absolute overdose of shit in a short period of time, and you had an extended period of that. What would you say if you could encapsulate it? And this is a bad question in a way, but from someone from your experience, what would you say to someone else about trying to move forward under the most difficult circumstances?
I suppose I have, if I was to send you my signature block now, I have a little statement there. It's a saying on my statement, which I think kind of encapsulates everything about the way I am with regards to mental health and the way that people, if I put it, it's the cracks are there, but they also let the light in. All right, so we all crack, we break and everything else, but they're not just there to say that we're breaking. It also lets the light in. So let the light in. Do you know what I mean? Let the light in, because there is a way. There is somebody there to help you, no matter what it is. You know, BuildForce do a great program. You've got mentors are there. Don't be afraid of the outside world. You know, one thing we really are pouring in the military is from the day you join, you guarantee you're going to leave at some point. So what we don't do is prepare people to leave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anybody that's either starting the transition from going from military to ever, the more you spend, the more time you dedicate to it, the more you use BuildForce and other people, use your mentors, get the information, build them connections, have confidence, talk about your experience. Yeah. Let them talk about their experience and what some people have worked with soldiers and gone, because they don't know about us. They don't really know what we did or what we used to do or how we deal with things. You know, I had a bloke talking to me about mountain people and valley people, and there's a rock halfway on the mountain, and what do we do? I said, either go over, under, left, right, or straight through the middle of it. Yeah, I'm not going back down to have a conversation and all this malarkey. Nah, we're still going up the hill. So yeah, that's just let the light in.
Yeah, Andrew, can I ask a question? As I've got a young 4-year-old, so what have you taught your kids, your boys, about mental health?
2 boys. I've 100%, probably the biggest bonus that I've taken about it is to express how you're feeling. To express how you're feeling, and you know, I've got a 16-year-old son. He just did his GCSEs last year. My sister's a teacher, and she's like that. It doesn't matter how much. If a kid doesn't want to learn, it doesn't want to learn, and we all learn at different stages. So I was very much like that. Son, I only want C's and above, maths, English, and science. I was a recruiter. I know what everybody wants: maths, English, and science, C's and above. Everything else is a bonus. Oh, you do you. If you need my help and my support, you do it. If you think you need extra training, come and tell me. I'll help you out. I'll get it. I'll pay for it. That's my job as a parent. I'm here to support you, and emotionally, the odd kick in the backside. Get off your Xbox. You're never going to learn anything doing that. All right, but I'm there to mold you into being who you want to be. But it's ultimately your choice. Now he's actually going off to join the Navy. I'm like, hats off, sir.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's just started his application to join the Navy. He wants to be an aircraft engineer he wants to be an engineer. I'm like that. Well, 20 odd countries in the army in 20 odd years, and my brother-in-law, 80 odd countries in 7 years in the Navy. So get paid to travel and see the world, and why not do it with a world-class engineering background? All right, in the Navy. So
Angela's prompted a question to me, another question for me. How's Lisa, your wife, doing?
Do you know what? Lisa's good. Last year, last year was the first year she actually had proper counselling, because every time she tried any form of counselling before, she used to walk in and say, "Quick question for you. What? Have you lost a child? No. What do you know? Stand up and walk out."
Yeah.
That was it. I kind of had that thing, but when I reached my break point, it's not just about that. It's dealing with the issues around it. Yeah. So Lisa went, "Okay, I'll give it a go." And she went, so I sort of got these sessions. I thought, yeah. I booked a group of 8 sessions. She ended up having about 23, 24. And I tell you something, it was worth every penny. Yeah. Worth every penny. Very much didn't change her, but just gave her some more understanding to it. So that was like 13 years to get to that point.
And do you feel now, Andrew, you've got your mojo back?
I'll always. I'm kind of a boisterous person. I'm very energetic and passionate about what
we hadn't
do.
noticed that, Andrew. That hadn't come across in any.
I'm a little bit energetic, and I am very passionate. I have always been. Any of my mates from the military or civil will tell you I'm, not so much a meerkat, but I look after my team. I want the best for my team. I want the best for the department. I want the best for the company. That's just the way I am, 110% committed. But I still have bad days, because I'm a human being, and we all have bad days. Mine just can be a little bit more like, I can have great weeks, great months, good year, and something can trigger. That happens, but I recognize it in myself now, and I know when I'm going down, because I sought the help. So sometimes I go in and Lisa's like, "You okay?" And I'm like, "I am. I'm just having a quiet day." And kind of that's what I do, and I recognize it when I'm in myself. And I know there's help out there. If I need it, I can phone the British Legion, I can phone whoever. There's so much. There is actually, when you look, the worst thing is we don't really signpost it enough, but there is help out there, and it's always there available for us. And BuildForce, you got yourself, Bernie, there, end of a phone, email.
Absolutely. And the team, we're a very committed team. I can tell you this lot. We're quite a crew, and we're all there to support as much as we can. And we've got good leadership.
Thank you for that, Bernie.
I know, we got excellent leadership. Right. Andrew, I'm going to say thank you ever so much again.
Thank you for inviting me.
Really, thank you for being so open with us and sharing what is very, very difficult stuff. I'm going to hand over to Angela to sort of wrap things up, if that's all right.
Thank you, Bernie, and a heartfelt thank you from me as well, Andrew, for sharing your experiences today, and to you, Bernie, for your wisdom and for leading our session. So we must all deepen the value and commitment we give to mental health as individuals, family members, employers, industries, and we need to match that value with more compassion, understanding, and patience with ourselves. So talking about mental health reduces the stigma, it normalises it. And we all have our mental health, and we all have bad days, as Andrew says. We just need to feel empowered to seek help when we need it. So why don't you start a conversation about mental health on Time to Talk Day? So best wishes to you all. Look after yourself, and best wishes, Andrew, Lisa, and the boys as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.